We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Chaf Amud Beis in Mesechet Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 120b. The Gemara here has another version of Rava's answer. Rava answers that when it comes to the machlokas tanoim between the Rabbanan and Rebbe Elazar ben Mahavoy, the machlokas over there is in terms of whether the mole is considered a good siman. Everyone really holds in general simanim are derabbanan, but here they're arguing whether siman muvhak kamiflagi. Is this considered a siman muvhak, which might be effective even though normally simanim are derabbanan? Marsav are siman muvhak. One says this mole over here is a siman muvhak, as Rashi over here says muvhaku. V'afagav the simanim derabbanan, even though normally simanim are derabbanan, a siman kihai, such a good siman like this, samchinan, on that we can rely. Afilu isser doraisa, even if it's relevant to an isser doraisa. Umar savar lav siman muvhak, and the other one says no, it's not considered a siman muvhak, and we do not rely on it. That's the position of the Rabbanan. But the Gemara continues, but according to that version we said above, the Amar Rava, where Rava said simanim doraisa, that actually simanim are really doraisa. So still, how do we explain the following line in the Mishnah? Hakatani, but it says in the Mishnah, afa bishiyesh simanim begufo uvekelav. Even though there are simanim on his body, there are simanim on the clothing that he has on his vessels. All of those don't count. Why don't those count if simanim are doraisa? And so the Gemara says, no, gufo de orach v'gutz. When we talk about simanim on the body, we just mean whether he's tall or short. That's not really going to be a good siman. And kelev, when it comes to his clothing, the chashin and l'sheila, we're afraid that there might be a situation here where he borrowed the clothing. Rashi over here says, de orach v'gutz lav simanim ninu. Those are not real simanim. In other words, real simanim would be doraisa, but those are not real simanim, tall or short. Kelev begodav, when it comes to his kelim, shemal acher hishilan. Maybe he lent them to somebody. V'yosa acher meis, and it's that guy that's really dead. And the people see him and they think this is the guy who owns the clothing. That's not really a proof. But the Gemara continues, but if that's really true, that we're concerned that something might be lent out, so chamor b'simani ukaf, let's say you have a donkey and you have simanim on the saddle, and how do we return the donkey? Maybe it was a borrowed saddle. And to that the Gemara says, lo shaili inshi uchva, people will not borrow a saddle, demaskiv le'lechamra, because it damages the donkey. The saddles have to fit perfectly, otherwise they can harm the animal. Matzo kosher b'kisu v'arniku v'tabas. But fine, what about the case before that we said where he finds the get and it's tied with the wallet or the money purse, or it's tied with the ring? So heichim hadrinan, how do we return it in that case? Meaning, how do we rely on those simanim? Because again, maybe those items were borrowed. Why are they considered effective simanim? And the Gemara says, no, tabas chayish l'ziyufi. We're talking about the ring. We're talking about a signet ring. People won't lend that out because there's going to be forgery. Kis v'arniki, when you're talking about wallets or purses, minachshi inshi v'lo moshli, people think it's a bad omen to lend those out, and they won't lend those out. Viba is saying, and if you want, I could say, kelav b'chivri v'sumki. We can give a different answer altogether. Really, we're not afraid that kalim are lent out. And when it says over there in the Mishnah that we don't rely on simanim in the kalim, it's talking about the person says, oh, he was wearing white clothing or red clothing. That's not really enough of an identifying siman, and that's why we do not rely on it. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, quoting the Mishnah of Afilu Ra'u Meguyad V'chulu. It says, even if the person, you see him cut open, that does not necessarily mean that he's dead. They have to testify that he actually died. The Gemara says, L'meimer de Meguyad Chaya. Does this mean to say that somebody that's cut open can actually survive, can actually live? Uramini, we have the following contradiction. It says, Adam Eino Mitame. A person is not Mitame, talking about Tame Meis, Ad Sheteitze Nafsho, until he actually dies. Afilu Meguyad V'afilu Goses. Even if you have a situation where the person is cut open, even if you have a situation of a goses, which is a person who is certainly going to die, so still they're not going to be tamei until they're actually dead. And so the Gemara now draws the following inference: tamuye lo metame. So these individuals, they don't create tumah because they're not actually dead. Hamichya lo chai, but it certainly sounds like they don't actually continue to live. Seeing them in this state is evidence that they are certainly going to die. And so the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, Abaye says, Lo kash, it's not difficult. Har Rav Shimon ben Elazar, Har Rabbanan. In one case we're talking about Rav Shimon ben Elazar. In the other case we're talking about the Rabbanan. It's actually machlokas when you have a situation of a meguyed, whether that person can survive or not. The Tanya, as we learned in a brayso, Me'idin al ha-meguyed ve'ein me'idin al hatzolov. It says in the Tanna Kama that we are able to testify about someone who's cut open. That is evidence that the person has certainly died, or he certainly will die. You're not allowed to testify on someone who is crucified. Rav Shimon ben Elazar, Rav Shimon ben Elazar says, Afal meguyad, even when it comes to the meguyad, you are not allowed to testify on him when he's cut open. Ein me'idin, one is not allowed to testify mishum mibnei sheyachol lechavos v'lichios, because it's possible to use heat, to use fire in order to stop the wound from making the person die, and it is possible for him to survive. So you see here a straight machlokas by a meguyad, whether it's possible to survive or not. But the Gemara continues, but can you really say that our Mishnah follows Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, and that's why Meguyed, we can assume that maybe the person will survive? But look at the end of the Mishnah. The Mishnah later will say, Ma'isa ba'asi, there's a story in Asya. There's a person they lowered into the sea. When they pulled him back up, the only thing that they were able to find was his leg. And the Chachamim said, if what you find is from above the knee, it's cut, it was severed above the knee, so then tinase, so then she's allowed to get married. He will never be able to survive such a cut. But if the cut was below the knee, so lo tinase, so then she cannot remarry, because it can be assumed that he might survive. And so in any case, if we were following Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar over here, even in a situation of minhu arkuva ulamalo, maybe he would survive. And the Gemara answers, no, shani maya, it's different when he's in the water, demar zumaka, because there the wound is actually aggravated, and even Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar would admit that it's impossible to survive. But the Gemara continues, V'amar Rabba bar bar Chana, but didn't Rabba bar bar Chana say, L'didi chazi liahutai, I once saw a certain Arab, the shakel safsiru, who took his sword, v'gaide lagamli, and he cut open his camel, v'lo afsikte lenaruse, he wasn't able to even finish making its sound, the sound that the camel makes, it died instantly. And so from this story alone, you see that it's impossible to survive. So how could we even defend our Mishnah and say it follows Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar and it's possible to survive? It's not possible to survive. We see that from this incident with Rabba bar bar Chana. And the Gemara says, no, that incident proves nothing. Amar Abaya says, Ahi kechisha have. In that case, it was a weak animal, it was a weak camel, and therefore there's no proof from there whatsoever. And the Gemara continues, Rava says, this is a different answer to the contradiction from the Mishnah in Olos in the first place. Again, the Mishnah in Olos said the person is not considered tamei until he's actually dead, but it implied that the person can survive if he is cut open. And again, our Mishnah said the person cannot survive. And so Rava answers, Besakin milubenes v'divrei hakol. Over there, we're talking about where the person is cut open by a knife that is, over here rather in our Mishnah, we're talking about where the person is cut open with a knife that is white hot. And in such a situation, again, the heat actually helps to close up the wound, to heal the wound, and that's why it's possible to survive in our Mishnah, even though in the Mishnah in Olos it was clear that the Mishnah held the person will certainly die. Rashi over here says, Melubenes bo'esha mitocha michva misrape. Again, you have this fire, this white hot fire, so therefore that's going to help it heal, and that's why, again, it's possible to survive according to our Mishnah. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, V'achaya ochelos v'chulu. It said, even if you see that a wild animal is eating him, still that's not enough. Again, the Edom have to actually testify that they saw that he had actually died. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yudah Mar Shmuel. Rav Yudah says in the name of Shmuel, Lo shanu ela mimokam shei nafsho yotza. When we say that if the animal is eating him, we don't necessarily assume he's certainly dead. That's only talking about a situation where the animal is eating him at a part of the body from which the soul does not depart. Aval mimokam shei nafsho yotza. But if the animal is eating part of his body from which the soul departs, so then me'idin, then already they can testify it is certain that he's going to die from that wound. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rav Yudah Mar Shmuel, and Rav Yudah says in the name of Shmuel, Shachat bo shnayim o rov shnayim. Let's say have a situation where the person shechted both, talking about the windpipe and the food pipe of the individual, or he got shechted the majority of those two pipes, again through the windpipe and the food pipe, uvarach, and then he ran away, me'idin. In that case also we can testify because it is certain that that person will die. The Gemara says, Ini, is that really true? V'amar Rav Yudah Mar Shmuel, but the same Rav Yudah said in the name of Shmuel, Shachat bo shnayim o rov shnayim. Let's say a person got shechted, again, both the windpipe and the food pipe, or the majority of those, v'ramas, but then he's able to hint, v'yamar, and he says, Kisvu get l'ishti, write a get for my wife, harayelu yichtavu v'yitnu, so they're allowed to write it and give it, so it seems that he is considered alive. So it's a contradiction within Shmuel himself, whether shachat bo shnayim or rov shnayim is considered dead or alive, and the Gemara answers, it's not a contradiction at all. Chayu, he really is considered alive right now at this moment, v'sof olamas, but on the other hand, he's also considered that he is certainly going to die, and that would resolve the contradiction. And the Gemara says, Elameata, but according to that, Yehei gol al yado. Let's say somebody would do this unintentionally to somebody else, he should have to go to Golus, because it should be like he killed the person. Alamatanya, so why do we learn in a Brisa? Shachat shnayim or rov shnayim, if he shechted, again, both of the pipes, or the majority of the pipes, hareze eino gola, he does not go to Golus. And so therefore, again, why is he not going to Galus? He certainly killed him by mistake. And the Gemara answers, no, it was said on that, Amar Rav Hoshea, that Rav Hoshea said, we're concerned that maybe the real death was caused by the wind. Rashi over here says, Haruach bilbalto machmas haruach mes. Maybe it really wasn't directly because of the wound that the individual died. Maybe it was because of the wind. Hilkach legabe galus pater. Therefore, when it comes to exile, he's pater from galus. But nevertheless, in terms of his wife, we can certainly testify that this person is dead because he certainly will die from such a wound. Inami, or you can answer Shema Ihu, maybe again he was somewhat involved in his actual death, even though it was started through the process of the Shechita, but he hurried up the death, he made it come faster, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph.